There is a rhythm to the ancient world, a heartbeat of seasons that dictates the rise and fall of nations. And in the Levant, springtime was always the season for war. It was the time when the heavy winter rains finally ceased. The muddy tracks turned to hard-packed roads, and the silver trumpets summoned the mighty to the field of glory. But as this new spring dawns over the limestone walls of Jerusalem, something is fundamentally broken in the house of David. Usually, the king is the first to the front. Usually, he is the one leading the charge, the shepherd warrior whose presence alone turns the tide of battle. But not this year. David's generals, Joab and the legendary mighty men, have crossed the Jordan to lay siege to the city of Rabbah. The air in the capital is thick with the distant echo of conflict, yet the palace itself is eerily, dangerously quiet. For the first time in his life, the man after God's own heart has stayed behind. He wanders the vast cedar-lined corridors of his palace, his footsteps echoing with a strange, hollow restlessness that he cannot name. Success has brought a lethal kind of comfort. He is no longer the fugitive sleeping in the dust of Adullam. He is a monarch resting in his power. And in the shadows of that rest, a silent predator is waiting. David is about to learn that the most terrifying battlefield isn't found in the valley of Elah or the forests of Ephraim. It is found in the wandering, bored heart of a man who has grown too comfortable with his blessings. The sun begins to set over the rooftops of Zion, casting long purple shadows that look like bruises across the city. David climbs to the roof of his palace to catch the evening breeze, unaware that the kingdom he built is about to tremble under the weight of a single, wandering look. From the height of the royal parapets, David surveys his kingdom. Jerusalem is a jewel of stone and flickering torchlight, but his eyes do not settle on the horizon or the security of his walls. Instead, they drop to a private courtyard below, where a woman is bathing in the twilight. Her name is Bathsheba. She is the daughter of Eliam and the wife of Uriah the Hittite, one of David's most loyal soldiers, a man currently bleeding for his king in the trenches of Rabbah. The scripture tells us she was very beautiful to look upon, but for David, this is more than a moment of aesthetic appreciation. It is a moment of calculated decision. The evening wind whispers through the stone pillars, offering him 100 chances to turn back. He could go to his chambers. He could call for a scribe. He could fall on his knees and pray for the men dying in the heat of the siege. But the king who once faced giants with a single stone now finds himself utterly defenseless against his own rising desire. He asks who she is. He sends for her. There is a terrifying silent efficiency in the way absolute power can facilitate absolute sin. The palace servants move like ghosts, obeying the king's whim without a word of protest. In this hour, David is not thinking of the law he spent a lifetime studying. He is not thinking of the ark he once danced before with holy abandon. He is thinking only of the immediate, the tactile, the forbidden. Bathsheba is brought into the palace, and the darkness of the Judean night swallows the holiness of the crown. What began as a wandering gaze has become a deliberate act of high treason, not just against a loyal soldier, but against the God who plucked him from the sheepfolds and made him a giant among men. Sin rarely stays contained. Like a drop of ink in a bowl of pure water, it begins to cloud and darken everything it touches. A few weeks pass in a haze of feigned normalcy, until a message arrives at the palace that turns David's blood to ice. I am with child. The simplicity of the Hebrew text is devastating. In 4 words, the king is no longer a lover. He is a desperate conspirator. He knows the law of Moses better than anyone. Adultery carries the penalty of death, even for a king. To save his reputation and his skin, David begins to weave a web of deception so complex and so cruel that it reveals the chilling depth of his spiritual fall. He sends a royal courier to the front lines with a single command: "Send me Uriah the Hittite." When the soldier arrives, dusty, tired, and smelling of the campfire, David greets him with a false smile and feigned interest in the progress of the war. "Go down to your house," David urges with a serpent's charm. "Wash your feet and rest with your wife." He hopes that Uriah's presence at home will provide a convenient biological cover for the child. But Uriah is a man of a different caliber, an honor that David has long since discarded. Uriah refuses to sleep in his own bed while his comrades are sleeping in the mud of the battlefield. He sleeps at the palace gate instead, among the common guards. David tries again. He invites Uriah to a feast, plies him with strong wine, and gets the soldier drunk, hoping to break his iron resolve. But even in his stupor, Uriah's integrity holds firm. He will not enjoy the comforts of home while the ark of God and the army of Israel are intense. The king's plan has failed, and in his desperation, David reaches for a final, lethal solution. The betrayal is finalized with a pen, a seal, and a heart of stone. David writes a letter to his general, Joab, and he does something so cold-blooded it stains his legacy for all eternity. He gives the letter to Uriah to carry back to the front. Uriah, the loyal servant, carries his own death warrant in his hand, never once breaking the wax seal out of pure respect for his king. The instructions are simple and surgical. Set Uriah in the forefront of the hardest fighting, and then draw back from him, that he may be struck down and die. It is a murder by proxy, a coward's execution. Joab, a man of blood himself, obeys without question. In the heat of a desperate siege against the walls of Rabbah, the order is given. The line of Israelite soldiers suddenly retreats, leaving Uriah the Hittite alone against a wall of archers and blades. He dies as he lived, a warrior facing the foe, betrayed by the man he would have died to protect. When the news reaches Jerusalem, David breathes a sigh of relief that smells of the graveyard. He waits for the formal period of mourning to pass, and then he takes Bathsheba into his house as his wife. To the outside world, it looks like a tragedy followed by a royal act of compassion toward a grieving widow. The secret is buried. The scandal is averted. David returns to his throne, believing the nightmare is over. But the final sentence of the record remains, hanging over the golden palace like a shroud. But the thing that David had done displeased the Lord. A full year passes. The seasons turn. A child is born in the palace, and the sounds of new life fill the corridors. Yet a hidden spiritual rot has settled into the very stones of Jerusalem. David thinks he has gotten away with it. He believes the silence of God is the approval of God, until the prophet Nathan appears at the royal court. Nathan does not come with fire and brimstone. He comes with a simple story. He tells the king of a rich man with vast flocks who stole a single beloved pet lamb from a poor neighbor to feed a passing guest. David's old shepherd boy sense of justice flares up in a white-hot, righteous rage. "As the Lord lives," David bellows, "the man who has done this deserves to die." He pronounces his own judgment, unaware that the story was a mirror. Then, in the most chilling moment in the Old Testament, Nathan looks the king directly in the eye and speaks 4 words that shatter the foundations of David's world. "You are the man." The silence that follows is deafening. Nathan lists the blessings God poured out on David: the kingdom, the wives, the protection from Saul, and asks why David despised the word of the Lord. The sword that David used to kill Uriah will now never depart from his own house. The secret is out. The king is stripped bare before the Almighty. In this moment, David has two choices. He can harden his heart like Saul and die in his pride, or he can break. Falling to his knees, the king finally utters the words that begin the long, painful road to redemption. "I have sinned against the Lord." The crown is still on his head, but the heart of the shepherd king is finally, truly broken. The shadow has passed, but the consequences have only just begun.